Am I the asshole for refusing to help my daughter pay for college? Throwaway account. I, 48 male, have 3 children with my ex. My son, Joe, 24 male, and 2 daughters, Jane, 21 female, and Amy, 19 female. After the children were born, my great-grandmother started a small education fund for each of them that I have now since controlled since her passing. There weren't any specific criteria for this fund within the context of the law or bank policy because of the type of fund my great-grandmother started. I've added my own money to fund and my parents have occasionally put in some cash, but it was never expected. My ex never put a dime into it but always wanted to have equal control of it, and every time I refused she would get upset. Over the years she's tried to say that she needed money from the fund for expenses for the kids, citing that the child support I was paying wasn't enough. I still refused and said that to just send me the bill and I'll pay for it directly. She didn't want that and would shut up after I asked how she could be so desperate for money for our kids but refused to give any details. Fast forward to when Joe was going to college and I told my son to just give me enough information so that I can pay the school every semester and he'd be good. My ex tried to convince him to get me to give him all the money so that way he could have his privacy. My son did consider it but decided that he'd rather I just do this for him because he was worried of blowing through the money. I was proud of him. Jane, however, gave into her mom's way of thinking and insisted that I just give her the entire fund during her second year. I tried to convince her that this way was best and pointed at how well this worked out for her brother. Jane just called me controlling and said that I didn't respect her enough to let her make her own choices. Eventually I relented but made it clear that this was all the money that there was for her for college. That once it's gone and she was on her own if she needed more. Everything seemed fine up until about a few weeks ago and Jane called crying saying that she wasn't going to finish because she ran out of money. I asked her what happened and surprise Jane gave money to my ex. I let her vent and then told her that everything was going to be okay. That while she may not graduate by a certain time she can still finish school. She'll just need to apply for grants, scholarships, loans and maybe even take a year off to just work. How I would tell the school how she was on her own so she could get more money. Both Jane and my ex are upset with me, because they expect me to pay for her schooling and that I was being horrible for wanting her to struggle with loans. To me this isn't about being petty but rather giving Jane a hard lesson. She wanted to be treated like an adult. Well, finding your own way is what adults do. Joe agrees with me but now Amy is being pressured to access her fund to help her sister. Technically, I could help but I'd rather Jane work for it herself. Am I the asshole? ETA. Because I saw this question and wanted to clarify. 1. Each fund is separate and in each child's specific name. I added money in equally to all of them but, technically, Joe ended up with a lesser amount because the funds were created at the same time for each child so Jane and Amy's funds had more time to grow with interest. 2. Also when each of my kids entered high school I made them authorized users on one of my credit cards that I always paid fully on time to help build up their credit score so Jane can use that to her advantage. 3. By their senior year of high school each of my children were told how much money they would have for college, and that if there was any left over by the time they graduated it was theirs to do with as they pleased. 4. Joe and Jane both with to in-state universities to save money, but Amy is considering going out of state so she's really going to need every penny from the fund. She's even taking a year off before applying just to work so she can save more money. It's one of the reasons her mother and sister are using to justify Amy giving Jane some of her money. 5. We're American and living in the United States. Not the asshole. And you're doing yourself a major disservice with this post title. You did help pay for your daughter to go to college. Not the asshole. Both Jane and my ex are upset with me, because they expect me to pay for her schooling. You did. Jane is 21 and why she's crying too and guilt-tripping you about this while her mother coaches her instead of turning around and saying, "Mom, I need that money back," speaks volumes about how manipulative your ex is. If there's any way you can directly pay the school for Amy's costs instead of allowing her access, I recommend you do so. You can help protect her from her mother. Not the asshole. This will be a lesson of consequences and now taking responsibility. She will not learn if you bail her out, not to mention unfair on the others who were smarter. Let her take loans out. Please do not allow your other daughter to be pressured into giving up her share, Please pay for it directly to prevent it being misused. Not the asshole. As the other comments before me stated, you've been pretty clear about the money the whole way through. It was there for a specific reason. There is part of me that wonders why your daughter listened to her mother and gave her money. Was she under the impression she'd get it back, or that she'd always be able to emotionally blackmail you for more? That's what they're doing right now. Stand your ground. Edited as advised. Not the asshole. You are exactly right. Jane wanted to be treated like an adult. She made a major mistake and now has to deal with the consequences. I would go a step further and deny Amy the opportunity to make this mistake. Dad now pays the school directly. Your ex is a parasite. Not the asshole, and not sure why you'd think you were. I'd tell Jane that you're sorry her mom spent her money, but you did make it clear beforehand that you did not want to give her all the money for this reason. You won't compromise your third child's future for it, and you have your own expenses to deal with. I would ask your mom to help or return the money she's stolen from you. End of conversation. Not the asshole, and don't you dare tap into Amy's college fund to pay for Jane's mistake. Not the asshole. I'm glad your ex is your ex. Jane is unfortunately like her mother and not responsible and thinks someone will bail her out. You showed that you wouldn't, and you provided alternatives. You were even willing to give up claiming her, as I assume you support her living expenses otherwise, to help her out. You're not an ATM. And though it sucks, you definitely shouldn't allow your youngest access to that money. You did it once and see what it got you. Good luck. Not the asshole. What did she think her mom was going to do with her money? Not the asshole. Sad that I knew exactly how this would play out. I think your logic is exactly right. She wanted control of the fund, which you relinquished on account of her being an adult and being able to manage it herself. What she chose to do with it was her responsibility, and therefore the consequences are her responsibility as well. Not the asshole. Your ex is toxic and your daughter learned a hard lesson about her mother. Not the asshole. Let your daughter get repayment of the funds from her mother. She's an adult and knew that money was all she was getting. If you give in and pay, she won't learn a valuable lesson. The title doesn't really reflect the content of this post. You did help her with college. You just didn't keep paying after she blew through everything and gave it partly to your untrustworthy ex. If you don't pay, you'll be the ass for both of them. But I feel like this is an important teaching moment for your daughter. One thing you could do if they come knocking again to pressure you is that, if you're willing and able, you will match every penny your ex pays out of her pocket. This way they can't say you weren't willing to help out. You just weren't willing to foot the bill again. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Time for her to learn from her mistakes. If she wants to hate someone, it should be your ex. I doubt I would have given her all to her at once until after she finished or quit college, just because you know your ex better than your daughter does. Kids, a 21-year-old is a kid in many ways, can be really blind to parent faults until they get a lot older. Refuse to access your other daughter's fund for anyone, and hopefully they will stop badgering your younger daughter. Spell that out to all of them so they know no matter what they say to your younger daughter, they will not get any money. It will also help keep your younger daughter from feeling guilty if you say this to her. This could be Esh. Was your daughter aware of how abusive her mom could be? Did you know this would happen? Did you ever warn her that this could happen? Have you ever sat down and worked out with your daughter the chain of events that lead her to having no money? Could this money be recovered? She clearly trusted her mom. Was this in the back of your head that it serves her right for trusting her mom? Please let Amy move in with you if possible. These leeches will suck her dry. Not the asshole. You made it clear that she was only getting X amount. And pressuring younger sister to pony up from her fund? Oh hell no. Not the asshole. You were right to give her this money and let her make her own choices with it. Make sure you speak to your younger child about how important it is to manage money well, but be prepared for her to insist on taking control as well. You might make clear to your younger child that this money is meant for her education and that if she bails her sister out, then she's will be the one who needs to take on loans. It's a shame your ex used the money for things that weren't Jane's education, but that's between the two of them now. If Jane is emancipated from the two of you, meaning neither of you can claim her as a dependent, she will certainly receive a Pell Grant or lower interest federal loans. Not the asshole. I think it's obvious mom doesn't care about the kids' educations, but more so she care about what she can do with that money now. No way would I give Amy money for Jane. Jane won't get it, Mom will. Not the asshole. You made your position perfectly clear. If your daughter is upset she doesn't have enough to finish, she should ask her mother to pay her back for the money she gave her. Or she can take out a loan. She's an adult. As someone who has student loans, nothing makes you grow up faster than knowing you have to pay those back once you graduate. Your daughter is learning a life lesson at a steep price, but all of this is the result of her own actions. And I agree with all the other responses. Try and speak with your other daughter and explain to her that she is not obligated to help her sister and that doing so might hurt her later in life when it's her turn to pay for school. Not the asshole. A hard life lesson to learn, but an important one nonetheless. Not the asshole. You already paid for it. Your other kids shouldn't have to suffer monetary losses for her immaturity. Not the asshole. You would be the asshole if you have her more money or if you let Amy pay from her share. Maybe not in legal terms, but in moral terms I'd say you have trustee-level obligation to ensure this money is spent on the kid's education. Not your ex's shoes or whatever crap she bought. Jane made the mistake, but it's not your problem. Your obligation to fund enough for her education has been met. The fact that your wife stole the money is not really your problem. It's Jane's. She wanted to manage the money. She can send hired goons to her mother. Not the asshole. It's a good lesson when someone won't listen to let them realize the people around them may not have good intentions. Not the asshole. That actually would be your greedy ex. Not the asshole. Time she learnt not to listen to her mother, and to make wise choices with money. Not the asshole for refusing to provide financial aid. That said, you also say the money ended up in your ex's pocket. Did he misappropriate it in such a way that it creates civil liability from him to your daughter? If so, then I think you ought to give your daughter assistance in getting a lawyer and going after your ex. It is entirely reasonable to tell her she has to live with her decisions. But somebody in her early 20s does not have the sophistication or the financial resources to wage a legal battle with her own parent. Not the asshole. Play stupid games. Win stupid prizes. Let her be mad at your ex for using her and blowing the money. You warned her what would happen and here she is. 1 year of loans won't kill her. A lot of people don't get any help and do fine. By the way, sorry about your ex. She seems like a manipulative nightmare. Not the asshole. Jane needs to learn that her actions have consequences and that she shouldn't have taken that money for granted. Also talk with your other daughter and convince her that she shouldn't throw out her future for her irresponsible sister and mother. Not the asshole. Jane knew the deal and didn't hold up her end of the deal. Now she has to deal with the consequences. That's life in the real world and it's an important lesson to learn. If you bail her out, she'll learn nothing from this. Absolutely help her by guiding her to the financial aid office and helping her figure out how to get student loans, grants, possibly a part-time job, possibly take fewer classes if she can't afford full-time tuition, something I had to do. But she's supposed to be out in the real world as an independent adult very soon, so she's going to have to figure these things out on her own, as well. So I'd also suggest not doing too much handholding. Teaching her to fish versus giving her a fish, etc. I do think you need to acknowledge that your children have a financially abusive mother that Jane fell victim to, but giving away Amy's money isn't the solution. Being there to help with therapy once Jane realizes this is. You just need to be ready to support once she fully comes to terms with the horror that her mom stole from her. Not the asshole, but your ex is a major I see your problem. You don't want to reward bad behavior. I just worry that your daughter will hold it against you forever. The reason that is, it sounds like you have the means to help but chose not to. If I was you, I wouldn't budge because your youngest can make the same mistake. God forbid that from happening. May I ask, why did you divorce your ex? NTA. Please don't give in. You're absolutely right about it being a hard but very necessary lesson. You did everything you could to protect her, but at the end of the day, you laid out all her options and treated her like an adult. Not the asshole. You already gave her the money for college. It's not your fault she chose not to use it for that. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. You told Jane that her fund was all the money she's getting from you. You even tried to persuade her to not listen to her mom. She decided not to listen to you and was tricked by her mom to give her money. If anyone should be paying Jane's college, it's your ex. Whatever you do, don't let Amy fall for it, and remind Amy that this money was for college only and can't be used for her sister or her mom. Not the asshole. I already gave you your college money, Jane. What did you do with it? So why are you asking me and not the person you gave it to pay you back? A valuable lesson, your kids need therapy. Not the asshole, you're teaching her a few valuable lessons. That is exactly what you were trying to prevent. You were called controlling and disrespectful of your adult daughter. You did exactly what she asked of you. It's not your fault she made wrong decisions. Leave it up to your ex and her to figure out, since your help was viewed as controlling. Not the asshole. Jane's an adult and she fucked up. That's fine. But she can't expect you to come running to fix that when you already tried to warn her. Also, why is she putting the blame on you when it was her mother that caused this whole issue? Not the asshole, you made your conditions and reasons for the money very clear. This is a difficult lesson to learn and it's definitely going to teach her respect and responsibility for money. If you do want to help, you could advise her on how to apply for loans and come up with a plan to pay them off. You could also help her figure out a budget for how to pay for college herself by working and saving. Not the asshole. Perfect real-life readiness. Her actions have consequences. You told her that you wouldn't help her if she blew through all the money. You're keeping your foot firm. Not only that, but you're also showing Amy that you won't be pushed over. She's an adult. She needs to figure out a solution to her issue herself. What did your ex do with the money Jane gave her? Can she pay it back? Not the asshole. Your daughter's behavior is appalling to me. Millions of people are in crippling student debt. You get your entire tuition handed to you and you just blow to money? WTF. Your ex is a narcissist and wants the money for herself. She doesn't care about the kids' education and is using them as pawns against you to get the money. This is classic narcissism. They treat their kids as pawns and incite them against the other parent. Don't under any circumstances give Amy any of her money. Pay to the college directly yourself. Your ex is spending their money on herself and then telling them it is your fault. She is influencing them as narcissists do, that it is your fault they cannot finish school because you won't give them any more money. I mean, not the asshole, but I don't think your daughter Jane is either. Your ex is. You chose rather poorly whom to have children with, and, while your daughter is responsible for her choices, by the looks of it, she was manipulated by her mother. It's not like she blew it on drugs or something. Since it isn't run-of-the-mill stupidity, saying, haha, get fucked, to her isn't a stellar look either. Not the asshole for your question, but I do think that it was an asshole move to give all the money to her at one time when you already knew that she was susceptible to pressure from her asshole mother. Not the asshole. You did your job as a parent. You started up and funded a trust for each child for the college years. You need to talk to Amy and Joe at the same time. Amy has the two examples to follow. Let you pay everything directly and graduate with little or no debt like Joe, or she can have full control of the funds like Jane. Let her know that if she does what Jane did and give her mom money or bail out Jane, then when she runs out of money she's on her own. Your daughters are adults now, so with adult responsibilities comes adult consequences. Jane is experiencing those consequences right now. Curious on how much each fund has in it. Kind of. I could understand why you'd want to give your children the choice of you paying directly for college or then taking a lump sum. If their mom wasn't manipulative and money hungry, at best. Manipulation from a parent doesn't happen once and it doesn't happen overnight. By giving them the choice with the college funds, you're effectively giving them the option of being financially protected by their dad or stand up to their mom's manipulation. Do you genuinely believe all your kids are emotionally, mentally prepared to stand up to your ex's toxic behavior? What did you ex do with the money? Does Jane have any legal recourse there or any way to get the money back? It's wild that they expect you fix this when it was your ex who stole the money. Not the asshole.